Now, there's two general types of interactions that we see. Some of them are very rapid. When you talk about predation, you're normally just going to go ahead and eat and kill the organism rapidly, like our good friend the kitty here, who's playing maybe with that little mouse. And so when those things interact, it's going to be pretty much this is how it happens, and then it's over. So if you've got where something's hunting you, you either escape and the interaction's over, or you get caught, you get killed, and you get eaten. This is not going to be prolonged like we live together for a long time here. Not at all. With competition, this is going to be where organisms are fighting over some resource. So I like this one. This is actually a speed dating picture from Kenya. And so these people are trying to compete with the other people that are present to get dates. That's a type of competition. You compete with members of your own species for food, shelter, and mates, and you also can compete with members of other species. Like a lion might compete with the hyenas to try to get enough food, to try and secure enough territory to get that food. To try to get access to water, they might compete with the crocodiles that live there. So competition's any time that you're going to have to fight for resources, and this can be, once again, with members that are just like you. That's probably the most intense competition. Because the individuals that are of my same species have the same needs that I have. There is no certain things where they just want, item A and I want item B. So there's no need to fight. If you're both humans, you typically want the same houses, the same jobs, you want the same foods, you want the same mates. Whereas it's something like us and a bear, we might both want the picnic basket, but for the most part, they don't want to move into our house, they don't want our mates. There's less severe competition usually, but it still can be violent. You still see a lot of predators will kill other predators if they can because they don't want to have to share the resources. That's dangerous for them because they might starve to death if there's not enough food. So that's why it's not uncommon that you'll see stuff like lions kill hyenas or cheetahs or leopards if they're able to. Now, symbiosis, this is the long-term interactions that I was kind of alluding to with the short-term. So these are organisms that closely live together. Now, there's three ways this can go down. As you can imagine, if I said that you had to be partnered with somebody for essentially your life, one way that things could go down is you could both be happy. You could both say, this is great. We both want this. And we call that mutualism. So an example of mutualism is going to be the goby, a type of fish, and there's a type of shrimp that it lives with. Now this shrimp is for all purposes about blind, but he's really good at digging out burrows. And so the goby will then use the burrow of the shrimp, but in return it acts as the eyes of the shrimp. So when the shrimp comes out to go get food, when it comes out to dump materials because it's excavating, it's digging out holes and burrows, the goby will watch and stay in contact with it. And if it sees something, a predator, it will then make a movement to let the shrimp know, get in the burrow. And the goby will also go in the burrow so it's safe from the predator as well. So both of them are winning here. Both of them are happy. That's mutualism. With commensalism, one of them is happy, one benefits, and the other one just doesn't care. So right here you'll see these are epiphytes is what they're called. And so these are plants that live on other plants, but they're not stealing its water, they're not stealing its nutrients or food, they're not even stealing its light. They just need a place to grow that's higher up because in places like tropical rainforests, there's no light on the forest floor. So they grow on existing trees, and the plant that's growing on the tree gets light now. So it's happy, it wins. But the tree itself just doesn't care. It's not like the plant's so heavy it causes it problems. It's not stealing anything else from it. And so that's commensalism. One guy benefits, the other guy's just like, whatever. And then the last type, if you haven't figured out, is going to be that one guy benefits, just like always, but in this case, this is not such a happy, friendly, good ending. The other guy in this scenario is going to be harmed. And so this is common where you'll see stuff like parasitic wasps, this is what it's showing here, where they have an ovipositor, that's this little tube here, and so they will deposit eggs into this caterpillar. The eggs will then develop into larvae, which will look like little worm-like grubby guys, and they will then eat the fat deposits that are inside the caterpillar for energy, until eventually later on they will rupture out of the caterpillar and go through their final process of becoming a predatory wasp themselves, the adult form, fly around to find another caterpillar. So the wasp is winning here. Its babies have food, they've got protection until they're ultimately going to make it to adulthood. But for the caterpillar, this is more of a horror story. They're coming out on the raw end of this deal. So there's lots of different parasites, mosquitoes, ticks, leeches, tapeworms. There's lots of stuff even for humans that are parasites. Now, parasites, just to make it clear, these guys do not typically kill their host. Because if they kill their host, they oftentimes will die themselves because they want to feed on you long term. That's their whole life cycle normally is, hey, I'm a tapeworm. I'm going to eat some of your food indefinitely. So if you die, the tapeworm would die with you. So most parasites, if they kill you, will take a long time. They're not going to try to kill you quickly like with predation. Most parasites are also small compared to the organism that they're using as food, whereas with predation, it's normally a bigger organism killing a smaller organism. So there is a difference between predation and parasitism. Now, the last thing I want to go over is when we talk about ecosystems, which have these organisms that are living amongst the environment, I want you to understand two key terms. The first one is the simplest, and this is habitat. So if we're trying to describe how an organism is interacting with its environment, the simplest way is just to say the habitat, which is just where is it. So the habitat could be in the treetops of the tropical rainforest. Your habitat could be that you're a burrowing animal in the savannah, but it lets us know just where you live. It's like your address. I could find you, but I don't know anything about you. I don't know your job. I don't know who you're married to. All I know is where you're at. For a more complete picture of an organism, we use a term called a niche, which is your complete role. So this is more like your address, which is essentially the same as your habitat, but it's also plus your job. It's also plus whoever you're mated with. It's also going to be what you eat. It's going to be all the things about you, all the roles that you occupy within that environment. So this is going to be much more complex, much more useful to ecologists than just habitat. And amongst niches, there's two general ways that most animals will adapt. And so this is kind of cool. Some animals will say, you know what, I'm going to be a jack of all trades. I'm not going to do anything amazing, but I'm going to kind of be one of those people that can do a little bit of everything. So maybe they can dance a bit and sing a bit and act a bit, the triple threat. That's the generalist idea. That's like a raccoon. Raccoons aren't perfectly adapted to do much of anything, but they can fish okay. They can get through your garbage can pretty good. They can hunt small animals okay. They can scavenge pretty good. They can do a little bit of everything. And so that can be very useful for them to survive, especially if the environment's changing. They're very good at adapting. Now, specialists take a different tact. They say, I'm going to get to be the best at something, so that if I have to compete with somebody, I will crush them, because I am the best at what I do. Now, the danger here is if things change, they do one thing well. They do not do a bunch of things. So it's kind of like saying, I'm a refrigerator repairman. If refrigerators go away, you have no skills, no job. Versus if you're a general handyman, you could always just say, yeah, people don't want me to repair their refrigerators, so I'm building decks on houses. So I'm going to go through and install air conditioners, whatever it is. You can always move on to something else. So specialists will always win if it's essentially just one-on-one. They typically will win with no problems against a generalist. But if anything changes, these guys are screwed. They have no backup plan. What you see is what you get. So this anteater here is really, really good at eating ants. Digging holes to get into the actual ant colonies. It's great at those things. But if the ants go away, it does not have any other way that it's going to get food. It's probably just going to go extinct.